Canada has long been known as one of the countries with the best quality of life in the world. Its cities are clean, safe, and host major international sporting events. Yet only a few steps from grand stadiums and tourist-filled public spaces, there is a very different scene. Rows of tents stand in city parks, sidewalks become living spaces, and several main streets have become centers of a growing homelessness crisis. This phenomenon is no longer limited to Vancouver or Toronto. It has reached cities across the country. Lamport Stadium was once directly linked to the homelessness crisis. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the park around the stadium in Liberty Village became one of the largest homeless encampments in Toronto. Dozens of tents filled the open space. In July 2021, the area drew national attention when the City of Toronto, assisted by police, cleared the encampment. The operation triggered clashes with protesters and ended with dozens of arrests, making it one of the most controversial encampment removals in Toronto's history. Median home prices in Toronto have passed 1 million Canadian dollars, while average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is around 2,400 to 2,700 Canadian dollars per month, making it increasingly difficult for low-income residents to find decent housing. Built for the 1976 Summer Olympics, Olympic Stadium is one of Canada's most famous sports icons. However, a few kilometers from this stadium, Montreal is also facing a growing homelessness crisis. Downtown areas such as Place Émilie Gamelin have long been gathering places for many unhoused people because they are close to shelters, soup kitchens, and social services. And the limited supply of affordable housing have pushed more residents into homelessness. On game days or concert nights, tens of thousands of visitors fill Olympic Stadium. Yet only a few minutes from that sports icon, Montreal is still struggling with the major challenge of providing decent housing for its residents. BC Place is known as Canada's largest stadium and hosts international sporting events, concerts, and major competitions such as the 2026 FIFA World Cup. However, only about 15 to 20 minutes on foot from the stadium is the downtown Eastside, an area long known as the epicenter of Canada's homelessness and opioid crisis. On game days, thousands of fans crowd the stadium area, but only a few blocks east, the atmosphere changes sharply. That contrast becomes even more striking because Vancouver is one of the most expensive housing markets in Canada. Median home prices in the Vancouver metropolitan area are around 1.2 million Canadian dollars, while average rent for a one-bedroom apartment has passed 2,500 Canadian dollars per month. BC Place's closeness to the downtown East Side makes the stadium one of the clearest images of Vancouver's two sides, a city that hosts world-class sporting events, yet still struggles with one of the country's most complex homelessness crises. It is hard to find another street in Canada more closely associated with the homelessness crisis than East Hastings Street. For years, this corridor has been a place where thousands of people survive in public space. Along the sidewalks, emergency tents, wheelchairs, shopping carts, and personal belongings fill the side of the road, while lines of people can be seen outside shelters, soup kitchens, and food distribution centers. This area is also the epicenter of British Columbia's opioid crisis. Open drug use, overdose cases, and ambulances responding to emergencies almost every day have become familiar sights for local residents. Ironically, All of this happens only minutes from Vancouver's business district and tourist areas. For years, the government has spent billions of Canadian dollars building supportive housing, expanding mental health services, and responding to the overdose epidemic. If Vancouver has East Hastings Street, Winnipeg has Main Street. This corridor has long been a center of services for people who have lost housing, with Main Street Project, emergency shelters, mobile outreach teams, and various social organizations operating throughout the area. Every day, sidewalks around Main Street are filled with people lining up for food, looking for shelter, or accessing health services and harm reduction programs. In recent years, rising homelessness has also led to several encampments appearing in downtown areas and along the Main Street corridor, prompting the city of Winnipeg to apply special protocols for handling encampments while expanding outreach services for residents. Although various assistance programs continue to operate, the limited supply of affordable housing leaves many people still living without permanent shelter. In the middle of the downtown Eastside, Oppenheimer Park was once one of the clearest symbols of Canada's homelessness crisis. From 2019 to 2020, this historic park turned into a large encampment occupied by hundreds of people. Dozens to hundreds of tents filled almost the entire park, complete with emergency kitchens, health posts, and simple facilities built by the residents themselves. However, rising problems with sanitation, fires, violence, and overdoses eventually led the British Columbia government to close and clear the encampment in 2020. Although the park later reopened to the public, the crisis did not truly end. Most residents simply moved to other locations such as Crab Park and the East Hastings Street corridor. To this day, Oppenheimer Park is remembered as one of the clearest examples of how housing and addiction crises can turn a city park into a survival space for hundreds of unhoused people. If there is one street most often linked to Victoria's homelessness crisis, the answer is Pandora Avenue. The most visible point is around Our Place Society, an organization that provides meals, shelter, and various services for people who have lost housing. For years, the sidewalks in front of this facility have been filled with tents, wheelchairs, shopping carts, and long lines of people waiting each day for food or assistance. This area has also drawn attention because of open drug use and a high number of overdose cases, so ambulances and emergency workers are often seen moving in and out of the area. The British Columbia government has opened hundreds of supportive housing units and moved some residents into hotels or permanent housing. But the concentration of social services around Our Place Society means Pandora Avenue remains one of the places most closely identified with homelessness in Canada. In the middle of Toronto's downtown high-rises, Moss Park once became one of the largest homeless encampments in Canada. During the COVID-19 pandemic, dozens to more than 100 tents filled the park because many people felt safer living in open space than inside shelters, which were feared at the time as possible places of virus transmission. Over time, Moss Park grew into a small community with emergency kitchens, aid tents, and volunteer networks regularly distributing food and daily supplies. However, the situation also created sanitation problems, increased crime reports, and raised safety concerns among nearby residents. In July 2021, the City of Toronto cleared the encampment through a large operation involving hundreds of workers and police. The removal sparked clashes with activists and drew media attention across Canada. Unlike many other public spaces in Canada, Cabot Square is known not only as a gathering point for unhoused people, but also as a place closely connected to Indigenous communities experiencing homelessness. Located in downtown Montreal, this small park sits close to the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal and various social services that have long helped people without housing. However, the area is also often highlighted because of high levels of substance abuse, mental health struggles, and emergency situations that require quick medical response. For many Indigenous people, Cabot Square is not just a public space, but a last place of refuge after losing housing because of poverty, intergenerational trauma, and limited access to proper services. On the edge of Vancouver Harbor, Crab Park offers views of the ocean, mountains, and cargo ships moving in and out of the port. However, this small park also became one of the newer symbols of Canada's homelessness crisis. After the large encampment in Oppenheimer Park was cleared in 2020, many unhoused people moved to Crab Park because it was still close to the downtown Eastside and various social services. Within a short time, dozens to more than 100 tents filled the park, turning a public space originally used for recreation into a place of survival for people without housing. The encampment sparked a long debate between the government, the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, and advocacy groups over the right of unhoused people to remain at the site. Known as the home of a historic conservatory that has stood since the 19th century, Allan Gardens should be one of the calmest green spaces in downtown Toronto. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, this park became one of the largest homeless encampments in the city. Dozens to more than 100 tents filled the park for months, while volunteers regularly distributed food, clothing, and basic supplies to its residents. Allan Gardens became known for encampments that kept returning even after being cleared several times by the government. Many residents chose to come back to this park because it is close to shelters, health services, and various social organizations in downtown Toronto. For more than a century, Halifax Common has been known as the largest green space in downtown Halifax. However, in recent years, this park has become a symbol of the worsening housing crisis in Atlantic Canada. Rows of tents began appearing as more residents could no longer afford rising rents, while affordable housing became increasingly limited. The encampment phenomenon in Halifax grew relatively quickly and surprised many local residents. This condition sparked heated debate over the right to set up tents in public spaces, while also highlighting the rising cost of living in the city. Median home prices in Halifax have now passed 600,000 Canadian dollars, while average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is around 2,000 Canadian dollars per month. For years, Beacon Hill Park was known as a quiet city park with shady trees and views of the Juan de Fuca Strait. However, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the face of this park changed drastically. After a court ruling allowed people who could not get shelter beds to set up tents in public spaces, hundreds of unhoused people began filling Beacon Hill Park. At its peak, more than 300 tents stood across different corners of the park, making it one of the largest encampments Victoria had ever seen. The The situation triggered intense debate among the government, residents, and advocacy groups. Some saw the encampment as proof of the housing system's failure, while others complained about damage to public facilities, sanitation problems, and rising fire risks. After the British Columbia government opened hundreds of temporary housing and supportive housing units, most residents were eventually moved, allowing the park to reopen to the public. Located in downtown Winnipeg, Millennium Park was originally designed as a public space for community activities. But in recent years, this park has also become one of the places often used by unhoused people for shelter, especially when city shelters reach capacity. Its location, not far from Main Street, and several social service centers brings many people to the area in search of food, health support, and a place to rest. The situation has triggered complaints from residents and business owners, especially over sanitation and safety in public space. At the same time, humanitarian organizations see the phenomenon as the result of rising living costs, a lack of affordable housing, and the high number of Indigenous people experiencing homelessness in Winnipeg. The intersection of Sherbourne Street and Dundas Street East has long been known as one of the places most closely tied to Toronto's homelessness crisis. Unlike Moss Park, which was filled with tents, or Allan Gardens, which became an encampment site, this area developed as a daily activity hub for many unhoused people because it sits near shelters, soup kitchens, health centers, and social organizations. From morning until night, the sidewalks around the intersection are often filled with people lining up for food, looking for help, or simply resting in public space. The area has also drawn attention because of rising open drug use, high overdose numbers, and frequent ambulance and emergency responses around the location. Sherbourne Street and Dundas Street East remain one of the clearest images of how the homelessness crisis continues to shape life in downtown Toronto.